Hello everyone, today I'm going to be showing you how to make super simple beginner's project simple little mice like this. Look, so easy, I promise. Okay, so all you're going to need is the colours of your mice. So I've gone for a brown today, so you can use whatever colour you like. I've got a nice pink here, that's for his ears and his tail. Tiny bit of black, you'll only need a tiny bit for his eyes. I've gone for my double clover needle here, which has got 38 gauge triangle needles. They are my favourite. And I've got a single one as well, which is also a 38 gauge triangle. My mat, I've got my Feltabulous mat. It is my favourite 100% wool mat, I have to say. And then it's got my just a piece of felt over the top, so I'm not blending any of my colours that's coming from my mat. And you can pick any colour you like. Super simple, great beginner's project. So here we go, happy felting. Okay, so to make the mouse today, I'm going to be using this brown, really lovely brown blend slither, carded slither. You could of course use batting as well, so something like this would be good. A batting comes in a slightly different form, so it's more like a blanket rather than a long line, but you just take off what you need, okay, and get it into the shape that you need. Right, so I've taken off some bits of my slither. Ooh, and I've got 3 little bits here. Okay, so I'm just going to draft it out slightly, stack it on top of each other, just slightly here so it's connected, just slightly. I think I'm going to go for about that much. Okay, so the next thing I'm going to do is literally just fold. Okay, so when I'm folding, I'm thinking to myself, this is about the length of my body, okay, about the length of the cone shape that we are making. Okay, back he comes over here. So I've just turned it around. Of course, you could have just turned your mat around, and that's nice and easy too. And then I'm literally just going to roll. So the back here is where his bottom is going to be, and that bit is obviously going to be thicker because that's a lovely twice the amount at the back there. If I start rolling and I think, oh gosh, it's getting so long, I can just push in slightly and keep rolling. But we are going to be doing felting at the back anyway. Okay, so now I've got this sort of sausage shape at the moment. I'm going to take my clover needle that's got 2 38 gauge needles in, and I'm just going to get everything together. So I'm going to go all along this sausage, obviously watching my fingers, and then I'm going to turn. Okay, and that's all I'm going to do for 5-10 minutes or so. Keep turning. Keep turning. I'm going to start building up the cone, okay, or the teardrop shape. All right, I'm not worried about the seams or anything like that at the moment because I know I'm going to cover them all up. I'm not too worried about this nice point at the end because I know I'm going to make that in a minute. Okay, so once it all comes together, yep, it's all staying together now. I'm just going to stab what would be his bottom to get that to all come in and go together. That's going to be his bottom, his nice fat bottom at the end, where we're going to put his nice tail. Okay, and then I can start working on this bit here. Now, it doesn't have to be super pointed, because as you can see, you round it all off when you pop his nose on anyway. So don't worry about getting it super pointed or anything like that. But what you want to do is get it all together. So I just turn, stab, turn, stab, turn, stab. Okay, and once it's all coming together, and then I'm going to push all those fluffy fibres at the end into his nose, okay, to create more of that teardrop shape at the end. The pointed, not super pointed, but kind of pointed shape at the end. Okay, so now it's all sort of coming together, pushing it back in. Now I'm using my double needle just because it speeds everything up. But if you've got a single needle, that is absolutely fine as well. You don't necessarily need to use anything more than 2 needles. Depends what you like to do, really. Ooh. So bringing it all in, look, and the more I stab and turn, can you see that nice pointed shape is coming? There you go, it's coming. Okay, so I'm just pushing in because, like I said, I don't need it super pointed. And what I'm aiming for is a sort of a medium firmness. Okay, the reason I want a medium firmness is so that when I put his eyes and his ears on, they don't completely disappear. because if it's too soft, then anything you're adding, any details you're adding, will just disappear into your body, and you don't want it to do that. So I'm going for a sort of a medium soft. Okay, if this is the first time you've done any felting, it will be tricky to work out what is a medium soft, and that's absolutely fine. You go until you're happy with the shape. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to keep felting this for the next sort of 5-10 minutes maybe, just making sure this bit's all nice and firm and shaping this bit, just pushing in here to his bottom so that all starts to become firm again. Okay, and then I'll come back to you. So hopefully you can see as part of the time lapse that I added some fibres to the end here and felted them all in, and that's helped me to get rid of some of the seams from where I folded it originally. And then I've got this little teardrop shape. I also worked on the nose bit again, firming that up a little bit, and then pushing in here and rounding off his bottom. Okay, so we've got this little teardrop shape now. Next, I'm going to switch back to my single needle. Much easier with a single needle when you're working on small detail. So I'm going to take a little bit of the pink. So you can pick any pink you want. I've gone for a really peachy one today. And I'm going to roll it in my fingers. Now, when I roll it in my fingers, I'm looking for a sort of ball shape. Not perfect ball, but sort of ball shape. And I can see how it's all going to come together and fit on the end of his nose. So I can already see that I've taken too much. That it's going to be too much for the end of his nose. Easily fixed. I'm going to break it in half, take some off, and ball it up in my fingers. Yeah, that's a bit better. So right on the end of his nose, really carefully, because we're working really small at the moment, I'm just going to tack it on so I know it's not going to go anywhere. And then I'm just going to spend a minute or so going around and making sure that it's all on the end of his nose. So I'm just catching the fibres with the barbs on the end and making sure they all squidge into the end of his nose with my single needle. And it's as easy as that. Look, to give him a little pink nose, and he's very cute. Okay, so next we have to decide where his eyes are going. So I like to put the eyes on the sides of the faces. Okay, so I'm going to go here and here, and what I'm going to do is I'm just going to indent. And when I say indent, I'm going to stab straight in with my needle, straight in and straight out, till I get a little dent where essentially his little eyeball is going to go. So he's got a little hole in there, and then I can decide the other side is going to be about there. So again, a little dent. This just helps me when I put my little black fibre in. It helps me know exactly where they're going. It means that they're not going to be sticking out and bulging out. They're going to be in his face. There we go. So we're taking 2 little bits this time of black. And again, we're going to roll them in our fingers so we get tiny little balls. And we want 2 that are roughly the same. You'll be so surprised at how much fibre you actually need. Look how much I'm taking off. Hardly anything. You probably can barely see it. So let's have a look. Roughly the same. Yeah, not bad. I think the second one might need a tiny bit more. Woo. So I'm just adding a tiny bit more. There we go. Okay. So I'm then going to pop it on the end of my needle and push it into his eye socket. I'm trying not to push all the way through at this point, because if I push all the way through, then the black fibre is going to start showing the other side of your little mouse. So try not to push all the way through. Just use the barbs on the end of your needle. There we go. There's the first one. Easy as that. And there's the second one going in. And because you've already made the holes, you know exactly where they're going. No faffing about. Perfect. Lovely. So he's got eyes and a nose now. Nice and easy. The next thing he needs is his little ears. So we don't need that fibre anymore. I'm going to go pink little ears, and obviously you can do whatever you like. For this one, I've got grey little ears with pink on the inside. For this one, I've got pink ears. completely your choice. Okay, so you need 2 pieces, roughly the same. Whoop. And you need this sort of squarish rectangle piece. If you've got any different colours or vegetable matter in your fibre, just peel it out. And I want 2, I'm going to move him over there so I can work on here. I want 2 roughly the same. I think that's roughly the same. Lovely job, that'll help me to start with. And what I'm aiming for is a sort of rainbow shape like this. Okay, so I'm going to take my single needle, I'm just going to move one to one side. Take my single needle and I'm going to go for like this little rainbow shape. And I don't need them very big at all. He's going to have teeny tiny little ears, so you really don't need much fibre. If you think you've taken too much fibre, take a little bit off. Okay, so I'm just stabbed in this little rainbow shape, okay, this little arch shape. And then what I'm going to do, where that's stabbed in, I'm just going to fold the fibres in to where I've stabbed in that shape. And it might not keep completely perfect, and that's fine. It's just going roughly at this point. And you are making a 2D shape, so you will be stabbing into your mat. The only thing to remember when you're doing 2D shapes is just to peel it off regularly. Okay, so peel it off, turn it over. Whoop. Have I turned him over? Yep, I've turned him over. And here I'm just stabbing the second one. And now I'm going to start to make sure I get the shape and the size I want, so I can go around the edges. I'm using my single needle because I've gone really small. In a minute, what I quite like to do is switch back to my double needle. It brings everything together quite quickly. Ooh, but I just watch my fingers. So just be really careful with your fingers because you've gone really small now. Okay, so at any point, you can always go back to your mouse and think, oh gosh, they're too big. In which case, you can go around the edge and see if you can make them a little bit smaller. Or you could start with a new piece because you've used such a small amount of wool. It won't take much. So remember, peel off, turn over. Ooh. And it's all coming together now. I'm going around the edge, watching my fingers, of course. If you find this really, really tricky, use something to hold onto the ear, like another needle. So instead of your finger, use another needle as you're stabbing, then you're not going to stab your fingers. Okay, so I want it reasonably flat and almost this sort of arch rainbow sort of shape. So when you're happy with the first one, and I'm reasonably happy with that, okay, you can then do the second one. Oh, I can see another little bit of random vegetable matter in there. We'll take that out. Okay, so use this one as your template for your next one. Okay, so I'm just going to bring this together just a little bit. Okay, and then, like I said, use it as a template. So you'll get 2 ears roughly the same. So if you go around the edge and stab, maybe 3 times, look, whoop, you get roughly the same shape before you even start, which is fab. Stabbing in and then bringing it all together again. As I did before, just bringing all those fibres in to where you've stabbed the shape. That's it. And you can see this hardly takes any time at all. One top tip for this would be, if it's too thick for you, you can do wonders with an iron, just so you know. Steam iron over the top will flatten it out nicely. Or next time you do them, just take less fibre. You will learn slowly but surely to take less fibre to get thinner things. Okay, so I'm taking that off again. I'm just going to go back to my double needle to bring it all together, watching my fingers, going round the side to keep it all together as much as I can. Ooh, I'm just going to move around that side, it'll be easier for me. You can move it however you need to move it. Just stabbing it all in for a minute, turn it over. Don't forget to peel it off and turn it over because you don't want it sticking to your mat, whatever sort of mat you've got, it will stick. So turn it over, peel it off. Now, as you can see, I've left fluffy bits at the bottom. And the reason I've left all these fluffy bits at the bottom of my ears is because that's the bit that I'm going to use to attach to my little mouse's body. Okay, once it's attached to my little mouse's body, I can then use a tiny bit of top coat. So in this case, it would be the brown over the top of any of the pink showing, and you won't see the seam. Okay, so just check that they're roughly the same. I think they're roughly the same. I'm happy with that. Okay, now if you've got too much fluff at the end, this is your time to take a little bit off. Okay, so when you do that, hold on to your ear or whatever it is you've made and just take a tiny bit at a time. If you try to take too much at a time, then everything will misshapen. All right, so just take a tiny bit at a time. I think I've got too much there. That's a bit better. Whoop. Taking a little bit more. And I'm going to attach them to the body, and I usually do this just behind the eyes, to the side and just behind the eyes. So you can fluff out the bottom again. You can either go all the fluff at the back, all the fluff at the front, or you can spread it out a bit, your choice. I quite like to go all the fluff at the back. It makes it easier for me to cover everything up. Okay, so I'm going to go back to my single needle, and I'm going to go just at the back of my eye. I'm going to stab. Remember, don't worry about the pink fluff at the back. I'm just stabbing in the first ear. So I'm stabbing it in. All this fluff at the back is going to be covered by the top coat, so don't worry. Okay, so I'm stabbing that in. I'm going to the side just here, but I'm always going straight in and straight out with my needle. Just to the side there. Get everything to come in. Always got lovely big ears. And then I'm just going to go along here as well to make sure everything's attached. All the way along the seam, look. I can come in from the side if I think, gosh, they're too big. Just go in from the side a little bit, but always straight in and straight out. Okay, they are large, but I do love them. Okay, so that's the first one. I'm going to do exactly the same as the second one, and then I'm going to take some top coat and cover up the back here. I'm just going to speed that bit up for you before we do the tail. So hopefully you saw on the time lapse there that I added the second ear, stabbed that all in, and then I added a little bit of top coat over the top and stabbed that in so you can't see any of the pink or any of the seams. So now he's got his ears. All he needs is his tail. So I'm taking a little bit of whatever colour you want for his tail. So I've gone for my sort of peachy pink again. I'm just going to separate it a little bit lengthways. So I've got a small bit like that. And then this is how I make my tails. Super, super simple. Just start to roll it in your fingers, in your fingertips. Okay, this brings everything together. The heat and the friction from you rolling it from your fingers, you're basically dry felting it, which is quite handy. So we just roll it together. I decide how long I need. So I think that's about right. I can take any off the end, but I am keeping the end fluffy because I want that to stab into his bottom in a minute. Okay, so if you find it tricky to roll in your fingers, well, you can roll it in your palm. That's just as effective. There we go, rolling in your palm. Now, what I like to do is I take my double needle because it's twice the stab power, and I just go along my tail. Now, don't worry, it does flatten everything out a bit, but all I'm trying to do is bring all the fibres together, okay? So now, if you find it tricky again, remember in your palm of your hand, or you can just twist. And I do this a couple of times just to bring all the fibres together. It doesn't need to be super firm. He's not leaning on his tail or anything like that, so you can have it quite soft. I just want to bring it all together. So that's the second time I've done it. Bringing it all together, doing a little bit of twisting, and I can decide if it's ready to go on his bottom yet. I think I might do it one more time. Bring it all together. Remember, it does flatten it out, so don't worry, because once you start to roll again, it brings everything together and rounds it all off. Okay, peeling it off and bringing it all together. It's as easy as that. Super easy tail, look. Okay, and then I've got this little fluffy bit at the end. That's going to help me when I start to stab into his bottom. Poor little thing. So, middle of his bottom, turning him upside down. I'm literally just stabbing in, so I'm twisting so I can catch all the fibres and stabbing in his little tail. All those fibres on the end. Just get stabbed into his bottom. If you do have a lot of fibres on the end that you haven't taken off and you're trying to stab in, you can just use a little bit of top coat, cover it up a little bit. If you haven't got much, it should just disappear into his bottom. Okay, a little bit of stabbing is all it needs. There you go. And he's done. He's got his tail, he's got his ears, his nose and his eyes. Super, super simple. Great first beginner's project, great children's project, because you can make them any size, you can make them bigger, you can make them smaller, you can make them any different colours you want. You could even go for sugar mouse, which is what I've done for this one. I've gone for a nice sugar mouse here. And to make it even easier for yourselves, look, you could use sheet felt to cut out his ears. My only top tip would be to leave a little flap at the back here when you're cutting out. So cut out your nice round shape, leave a little bit here so you can stab that bit in. And you could even use yarn for his tail. If you're working with children, want to make it super simple, a little bit of pink yarn in his bottom instead. Look at that, look. Nice and easy. So that's how you make a super simple needle felted mouse. Look, great beginner's project. Thanks for watching. Happy felting.